My child, there is a truth that can stay hidden for years. But it can never stay buried forever. Someone you never expected finally found the courage to speak your name out loud. And the moment they did, an entire family fell silent. One confession. One unexpected conversation. And one mother's reaction became the turning point nobody saw coming. Don't skip this message. Because every single detail matters. Listen carefully. For a very long time, the person you love carried a heavy burden inside their heart. Every family gathering, every celebration, every quiet dinner reminded them of one thing they had never truly forgotten: you. They smiled when everyone expected them to smile. They answered every question with carefully chosen words. They acted as though life had moved on. But deep inside, there was one truth they could never erase. That truth became impossible to hide any longer. Late one evening, after everyone else had gone to bed, they slowly walked toward their mother's room. Their hands were shaking. Their heartbeat felt louder than their footsteps. They stood outside the door for several moments, wondering if they should turn back one last time. But they didn't. They gently knocked. Their mother looked up and immediately noticed something unusual. She had seen that expression only a few times before, the expression of someone carrying years of regret. She quietly asked, "What happened?" For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Then, with a trembling voice, the person you love finally admitted something they had hidden from everyone. "I never stopped thinking about them." The room became completely still. Their mother didn't interrupt. She simply listened. Words that had remained trapped for years suddenly poured out like a river breaking through a dam. "I tried to convince myself I had forgotten. I tried to make everyone believe I had moved on. I even smiled when people spoke about a different future. But none of it was real. I kept pretending because I thought everyone expected me to. And the person I could never stop loving was always them." Your name was finally spoken. Not as a memory. Not as a mistake. But as the truth. Their mother lowered her eyes. She remembered conversations from years ago. She remembered moments she had ignored. She remembered warnings she never believed. She remembered tears she thought would disappear with time. Everything suddenly started making sense. Every quiet moment. Every cancelled plan. Every forced smile. Every sleepless night. She realized that her own child had never been living the life everyone believed they were living. Instead, they had simply been surviving. The confession continued. "I was afraid to tell you because I thought you would be disappointed. I thought you would ask me to forget. I thought you would tell me it was too late. But I can't carry this anymore. I still love them." Those words echoed through the room. The mother slowly sat down. She covered her face with both hands. Not because she was angry, because she suddenly understood how much pain had been hidden inside her own family. She whispered something almost too quietly to hear. "If I had known this sooner." The sentence remained unfinished. Outside the room, someone accidentally heard part of the conversation. A family member froze in the hallway. Within minutes, whispers quietly began spreading through the house. Nobody knew the full story. But everyone realized something important had happened. Questions started appearing. Who were they talking about? What truth has been hidden all these years? Why does Mother look so emotional? One conversation had already started changing the atmosphere inside the entire family. The mother slowly looked back at her child. Her eyes were filled with tears. Then she asked a question that nobody expected. "Tell me everything from the beginning." Those 7 words opened a door that had remained locked for years. The person you love took a deep breath. They began revealing every misunderstanding, every sacrifice, every lie, every moment someone had secretly pulled 2 hearts apart while pretending to protect the family. As each hidden memory came into the light, the mother's expression changed from confusion to disbelief, and finally to overwhelming regret. She suddenly realized that someone inside the family had been controlling the story from the very beginning. Someone had twisted conversations. Someone had hidden messages. Someone had created misunderstandings that were never supposed to exist. And if what her child was saying was true, then the entire family had believed a lie for years. She slowly stood up, walked toward an old wooden cabinet, reached for a small box that had not been opened in a very long time. Inside was something she thought she would never need again. As she opened it, her face turned completely pale. Because the first thing she saw inside was your name, written in unmistakable handwriting. And at that exact moment, she realized the biggest family secret had only just begun to unfold. The moment their mother saw your name inside that forgotten box, she stopped breathing for a second. Her hands trembled so badly that the old letters almost slipped onto the floor. Dust covered the edges of the envelopes, proving they had remained untouched for years. She slowly looked back at her child, her eyes filled with disbelief. "You've never seen these before, have you?" she whispered. The person you love quietly shook their head. "No. I didn't even know they existed." For several long moments, neither of them spoke. The silence inside the room became heavier than any words could have been. Finally, their mother unfolded the first letter with extreme care. Before reading it aloud, tears had already begun forming in her eyes. She immediately recognized the handwriting because she had seen it once many years ago, but at that time she had never understood its importance. As she continued reading, every sentence shattered another piece of the story the family had believed for so long. The letter revealed that misunderstandings had never happened naturally. Someone had deliberately hidden conversations, changed messages, and convinced different members of the family that you no longer cared. Every decision that followed had been built upon those lies. The person you love could hardly believe what they were hearing. Memories that had never made sense suddenly connected together like missing pieces of a puzzle. Every unanswered message, every sudden silence, every unexpected distance, now had a completely different explanation. Their mother slowly lowered the letter. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I judged someone without ever asking for the truth." Those words carried years of regret. For the first time, she admitted that the family had accepted one version of the story without questioning who had benefited from it. She realized that one person's manipulation had quietly influenced everyone else's decisions. At that exact moment, footsteps echoed outside the room. Another close family member entered after noticing the emotional conversation. They looked at the tears, the open letters, and the expressions on both faces. "What happened?" they asked nervously. The mother didn't answer immediately. Instead, she handed over the oldest letter. After reading only a few lines, that family member's face completely changed. Their confidence disappeared. Their voice became weak. This can't be true." But deep inside, they already knew it was. One by one, more forgotten memories returned. Old phone calls that never reached you. Invitations that mysteriously disappeared. Messages that were supposedly never answered. Every strange event now pointed toward the same hidden source. The room slowly filled with silence again. No one could deny the pattern anymore. The person you love looked directly at their mother and quietly asked, if all of this had never happened, "Do you think our lives would have been different?" She couldn't answer. Because she already knew the answer. Tears rolled down her face as she admitted something she had never imagined saying. "If I had known the truth back then, I would have fought for both of you instead of believing the lies." Those words echoed through the house. Outside the room, another relative overheard the conversation and immediately called the rest of the family downstairs. Within minutes, everyone gathered in the living room, sensing that something enormous was about to be revealed. Nobody laughed. Nobody spoke. Everyone waited. The mother walked into the center of the room carrying the old box in both hands. She placed it on the table so everyone could see it. Then she looked around at every face before saying, "For years, we believed a story that wasn't true." The atmosphere instantly changed. Some family members looked confused. Others looked frightened. A few avoided making eye contact altogether. Then she opened the box completely and placed every hidden letter on the table. "I think it's time every secret comes into the light." At that exact moment, one person standing near the doorway suddenly turned pale. They quietly stepped backward, hoping nobody would notice. But the mother did notice. She looked directly into that person's eyes. Without raising her voice, she asked one question that froze the entire family. Would you like to explain why every single hidden letter somehow passed through your hands before it disappeared? The room fell into complete silence. And the expression on that person's face revealed far more than any answer ever could. The question echoed through the room like thunder. No one moved. No one even dared to breathe too loudly. Every pair of eyes slowly turned toward the family member standing near the doorway. Just moments earlier, they had looked calm and confident. Now, their face had gone completely pale. Their hands were trembling, and they couldn't bring themselves to look anyone in the eye. The mother waited patiently. She didn't shout. She didn't accuse. She simply repeated her question. How did these letters disappear? And why did they always pass through you first? The silence became unbearable. Finally, the person let out a nervous laugh, trying to dismiss everything. You're misunderstanding this. Those letters don't prove anything. But the confidence in their voice had already disappeared. The person you love stepped forward. For years, I blamed the wrong person, they said quietly. I believed they had stopped caring. I believed they chose to walk away. But now, I'm starting to realize someone wanted me to believe that. Those words struck everyone in the room. Several relatives began exchanging worried glances. Small conversations from years ago suddenly came back to them. They remembered strange situations that had never seemed important at the time, phone calls that mysteriously ended, messages that never reached their destination, invitations that disappeared, and unexpected arguments that had started without any clear reason. Piece by piece, the family's memories began fitting together. The mother picked up another envelope. Unlike the others, this one had never been opened. Its seal was still intact. Written across the front, in faded handwriting, were the words, "Please let them read this before it's too late." Her hands shook as she carefully opened it. Inside was a heartfelt letter explaining that misunderstandings had been growing because someone kept interfering whenever the two of you tried to reconnect. Every attempt to clear the truth had been quietly blocked before it could reach the other person. As she finished reading, tears rolled down her face. She looked at the family member standing by the doorway. How many chances did you take away from them? No answer came. The silence itself became the answer. Another older relative suddenly stood up. I remember something, they said. Years ago, I was asked not to mention your name anymore. I was told it would only create problems. I believed that advice was coming from the family. But now I'm not so sure. Another voice joined in. I remember receiving a phone call telling me the relationship was already over. Then another. I was told they never wanted to hear from you again. One confession after another filled the room. The same pattern appeared every single time. Someone had been quietly controlling the story behind everyone's backs. The person you love closed their eyes. So all these years, we were separated by lies. Their mother walked over and gently placed her hand on their shoulder. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I should have searched for the truth instead of accepting the easiest explanation." Those words broke something inside everyone listening. For the first time in years, the family wasn't arguing. They were mourning the years that could never be returned. Just then, an elderly member of the family slowly walked toward the bookshelf in the corner of the room. "I think there's something else you need to see." Everyone watched as they removed an old photo album hidden behind several books. Its cover was worn with age. As they opened it, dozens of forgotten photographs appeared. Most showed ordinary family gatherings. Birthdays. Celebrations. Holidays. Then they reached one particular photograph. The room instantly fell silent again. In the background of that picture, almost impossible to notice unless someone looked very closely, stood the same family member who was now being questioned. But they weren't smiling. They were secretly holding one of the missing envelopes in their hand. The date on the photograph matched the exact week the very first misunderstanding had begun. Nobody could explain it away anymore. The evidence had been sitting inside the family's own photo album for years. The mother slowly looked up. This wasn't an accident. It was planned. At that moment, the family member who had remained silent all this time suddenly took one step forward. Their voice cracked as they finally spoke. "If I tell you the whole truth, you'll never forgive me." Every heartbeat in the room seemed to stop. Because everyone knew that the real confession had only just begun. The room remained completely silent after those words. "If I tell you the whole truth, you'll never forgive me." No one interrupted. No one tried to stop them. For the first time in many years, every member of the family wanted the complete truth. No excuses, no half-stories, and no more secrets. The family member slowly lowered their head. "I never thought it would go this far," they admitted. "It started with fear. I believed the two of you would change everything about this family. I was afraid of losing my place. I convinced myself that separating you was the right decision." Their voice shook with every sentence. "So I hid letters. I deleted messages. I lied during conversations. I changed what each of you believed about the other. I kept telling myself it was only temporary. But temporary became years." The confession hit everyone like a wave. No one could believe that so much pain had come from one person's selfish choices. The person you love stood completely still. Years of confusion, heartbreak, unanswered questions, and silent nights suddenly made sense. It had never been a lack of love. It had been a lack of truth. Their mother quietly walked across the room. She looked at the person who had confessed and said, "You didn't just hide letters. You stole years that no one can ever get back." Those words carried more weight than anger ever could. Then she turned toward her child. With tears in her eyes, she said, "I cannot change the past. But I refuse to let another lie decide your future. She reached into the old wooden box one final time and removed the very first letter that had never reached its destination. She gently placed it into her child's hands. This should have been yours years ago. The person you love opened it slowly. Inside were simple but powerful words that had waited for years to be read. They spoke of hope instead of goodbye. They spoke of honesty instead of fear. Most of all, they showed that love had never truly disappeared, it had simply been buried beneath misunderstanding. As the final lines were read aloud, several family members quietly wiped away tears. One by one, they admitted they had accepted rumors without asking questions. They apologized for staying silent when they should have searched for the truth. The atmosphere inside the home changed completely. The family was no longer divided by suspicion. They were united by honesty. The person who had caused the separation accepted responsibility for their actions and understood that forgiveness could never be demanded, it could only be earned over time through sincere change. Their mother took a deep breath and spoke one final sentence that everyone would remember for the rest of their lives. A family becomes stronger when it chooses truth over fear, compassion over pride, and honesty over silence. The person you love looked toward the window as the first light of a new morning filled the room. For the first time in years, they no longer carried unanswered questions. The truth had finally been spoken. The lies had finally ended. And although the lost years could never be returned, the future no longer had to be controlled by the mistakes of the past. Sometimes the greatest victory is not getting back what was lost. It is finally discovering the truth that sets every heart free.